Hi everyone, welcome to episode 92 of the XS Noize Podcast. I'm Mark Millar. Thanks for listening. In this episode, I talked to Alice Merton about her fantastic new album, S.I.D.E.S. If you missed the previous episode, I spoke to renowned singer-songwriter Tim Finn about The Ghost of Santiago, his second collaboration album with legendary guitarist and producer Phil Manzanera.
First of all, to connect with Phil again, he produced the S.I.D.E.S album, which we called Mental Notes in the Northern Hemisphere. But because we'd already released an album called Mental Notes in Australia and New Zealand, we renamed it Second Thoughts out in that part of the world. But it was essentially our first album in the Northern Hemisphere. And Phil had seen us play. We supported Roxy Music in 1975 in Sydney. He watched from the side of the stage. We were very excited afterwards to meet him. We really liked Roxy Music. They were one of the only two or three acts that we really loved in the early 70s. I'm talking 71, 72. We loved the first two Roxy Music albums. We loved David Bowie. And there were one or two other things. But yeah, so it was a big thrill to have Phil there. And he offered straight away to produce us, which meant, well, we're probably going to get to London, which is what we dreamed of, That's where the bands that we love came from. Well, they certainly landed there. I mean, they were all from London. The Move, for example. I think they were a Birmingham band. But yeah, it was a very exciting meeting with Phil. And so to reconnect, not that we've had no contact in the interim 40 years, but barely at all. So yeah, to reconnect through music. And it was because of lockdown, because I said, Phil, we're stuck here in lockdown in New Zealand. Can you send me some, kind of Cuban grooves or anything you've got lying around that has a Latin flavored thing about it and is slow? And that's how we started. We kind of eased our way in.
So check it out. And if you like the podcast, please subscribe and share it with your friends. If you want up-to-date music news, album reviews and interviews, then check out our main website at xsnoize.com. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. Search for the tag at XS Noize Music. Here's XS Noize writer Daniel Lynch with a taste of what's been on the website this week.
Sean Crossley's latest on the turntable offering is Sandy Shaw's Hand in Glove. Revisit the classic album on vinyl with Sean, who says it's an essential record for all fans of the Smiths. There's new music releases this week from Architect, who release a new album in October. The Classic Symptoms of a Broken Spirit is the band's 10th album. A new single, Tear Gas, is streaming on the site now, where you'll also find the short film for Graveyard Love, the Mars Volta's latest single. In the reviews section, Laurie Gava gives Interpol's new album 8 out of 10. On the other side of Make Believe, Laurie says the band keeps their signature sound, but drops some of the cynicism from their lyrics, counterbalancing darkness with hope. It's an impressive and welcome return for the band. Big Shot City is the standout track. Read the full review at xsnoize.com.
With over 1 billion streams to date, and top 10 chart positions across Europe, Alice Merton has established herself as a major player on the pop landscape. In this interview, Alice talks about writing and recording her fantastic new album, S.I.D.E.S, touring with Bastille, and lots more. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the XS Noize Podcast with Alice Merton. Hi Alice, welcome to the XS Noize Podcast. Welcome again to the XS Noize Podcast.
Thank you for having me again.
It's a pleasure. I spoke to you last year about your single Vertigo, and you mentioned an album was in the works. So here we are, just over a year later, and your second album, S.I.D.E.S, is out in the world.
It is. It's exciting, nerve-wracking, terrifying, but I'm just so happy that it's finally out.
Yeah, it's a great album. Did you go into the writing and recording of S.I.D.E.S with any preconceived ideas? The kind of songs you wanted to write about and how you wanted the songs to sound?
I think when I started writing the album, my ideas were quite different from what it turned out to be in the end, just because of everything that happened, COVID happening, being restricted to kind of just that one area, that one city that you're kind of living in. I didn't really do any Zoom sessions. So I reached out to a lot of producers within Berlin and asked if they would be interested in working together. And I think also just from the events, the songwriting changed a lot as well. So yeah, it was a crazy journey. I never expected I think with every album, you never really 100% know what it's going to sound like in the end. So I wasn't expecting it to sound like this, but I love it nonetheless.
It's your second album. Did you feel more confident going into this record, or did you suffer from difficult second album syndrome at all?
I love how it has the name.
Yeah.
I think, to be honest, I was stressed more with the first album because when I put out my EP, that was kind of the one thing that took off so suddenly. And I felt like I didn't have any time to really put into the first album. Like I felt like I was being rushed because I was constantly on tour, or I was doing promotion for the single and the EP. So I actually felt more relaxed with this one because seeing what can happen in the world and how quickly live music can be gone from one day to the next, I really had this kind of feeling of like, okay, well, anything can happen in the world. So I'm just going to make music that I love. And that gave me some kind of relief and satisfaction. So I felt more relaxed, actually.
What were you listening to that might have inspired the sounds on the record?
I was listening to, what was I listening to? I always listen to different types of music. I don't think there's ever, I really don't feel like there's a correlation between what I listen to and the music I write, just because I go through it in my head and I'm like, that's strange. I was listening a lot to let's say Foo Fighters, or let's say The Killers or Keane, or maybe Phoebe Bridgers. And it's never like the music that sounds like that in the end. So yeah, I was listening to lots of different types of music. It depends really what phase I was going through. It was more, I think, series that influenced my music.
You mentioned Keane there. I mean, I love Keane. They're a great band. They write great songs, but I'd never really hear any other artist reference Keane.
Interesting. I don't know. I fell in love with Keane from their first album, and I don't know. I was a big fan. I was a big fan of Travis. I definitely think Travis was one of the bands that kind of influenced me, not really knowing that it influenced me. Yeah, I don't know. I listen to so many different types of music though, so it's very difficult to always pinpoint what is the inspiration for something.
Tell me about S.I.D.E.S. Where does the title come from?
So S.I.D.E.S basically, to be honest, I was writing a lot of songs where I was using the word sides unknowingly. It just popped up in every song. And then I thought to myself, okay, I think it makes sense to call this album Sides, because I'm obviously on some kind of weird journey here where I'm talking about sides of a team, or I'm talking about blind side of feeling like you don't know a person, that they just kind of entered this zone that you had never really seen before. Then the other side of getting to a point in your life where you actually feel like you're happy again, or you feel like there's some hope in life. So I really feel like I kind of was on a Rubik's Cube going from one side to the next, just trying to figure out life and feel okay again. So that's the reason I called it Sides. And then I wanted to give it another level by making it an acronym, because I feel like when you release an album, you're releasing so much personal stuff. It's like you're handing your diary out to strangers and be like, here, have a read. Especially in my case, because everything that I've written about in the past has been autobiographical. So it's it actually has happened, or it's stuff that I've seen or that I've been influenced by. So I kind of wanted to keep something to myself with this album. And then I decided to kind of make an acronym out of it, to know that I still have the control over at least a tiny bit.
I love the album cover with the melting face. Who came up with that concept?
I did, actually. I mean, I basically found an artist online whose art I was super inspired by. His name's Aykut, and he's Turkish. He spoke a little bit of English. And so I saw these paintings of him, and I basically asked him, I was like, hey, could you make my face melting into a table and kind of looking depressed? And he's like, yeah, sure. So I literally just sent a picture of me with my head lying on the table. And then a week later, he sent me this beautiful artwork that he painted. And I was amazed, and I loved it. So.
No, it's fantastic. It's very striking. Really, really like it. S.I.D.E.S is a long album. There's 15 tracks on the album. Could you just not bear to keep anything off it?
No, I think for me, I needed the 15 tracks to complete the storytelling. For me, this is really more of like a storytelling album rather than just a bunch of tracks that are like super poppy and feel good together. Like it really is a story. And I felt like if I left out one of the songs, I personally, as an artist, wouldn't feel like I told the story properly.
Well, let's talk about some of the songs. Radio 2's Joe Wiley is a big fan of same team, like myself. What can you tell me about that track?
Same Team, I feel, is the origin for a lot of the album. It talks about realizing either in a relationship or in this case, it was like a work friendship, or combined, I guess. I just felt like we weren't on the same page anymore. We weren't on the same team. And in that moment where you realize that you don't have the same vision is kind of a terrifying moment. And it's really sad as well, because it's like, you think you've been working all this time to head to the same goal or to be on the same side. And then you realize it just kind of falls apart. And and for me, it was a very kind of sad song to realize that, that I'm not on the same team with someone anymore.
Yeah, it's definitely a great track. My favorite track on the album is Blindside.
That's my favorite track too.
Cool.
That's so funny. So why is Blindside your favorite track?
I just like the sound of it. I like the video, just everything about it, the whole package.
Thank you. That means a lot. That's my favorite too.
It really stood out from me when I listened to the album. Yeah, so what can you tell me? What was the genesis of that song?
So Blindside is a funny one because Blindside is dark in the lyrics, and it's a very traumatic topic for me, because I felt like I had been working with a lot of people that were always putting ultimatums on me and saying, you better do this or else, even though I was my own like label. And I don't know, I felt trapped in a lot of situations, and I felt like I wasn't being treated with the same respect that I was given, that I was giving the other person. So basically I thought it would be fun to kind of write this song in a sarcastic, ironic kind of way where it's like, it's really sad. And like you put a gun to my head and I cried out, but nobody ever came. And having this uplifting chorus of like, well, maybe it just wasn't right. Like maybe there's no deeper explanation. It just wasn't right. And that's okay.
Island is another favorite.
Thank you. Yeah. Island has a little bit of like an 80s touch, got some cool synths in there. I like how the drums kind of mimic the waves for me, the drum pattern. And it just feels very kind of anxious and frantic kind of a little bit. So.
Yeah, I think that's why I like that, because I grew up in the 80s. I love 80s music, so, the sort of 80s vibe is what drew me to it. Which song on the album was the most which song on the album was the most challenging to get right?
Blindside. Blindside was the most challenging. I literally kept changing things till the very end, to the day before it was released.
Just tinkering away right before it goes to get mastered.
Basically, yeah. Like I even went back to the master, took out, like changed the production and had it mastered again, because it was just, I just couldn't figure out what the right thing was. And so for this album, I was the creative producer. There was no one who was kind of overseeing the whole project. It was me making sure that everything fits together, everything gets done on a certain date. I have to go through all the songs and make sure there's nothing wrong with the tracks. And that was so much work. Like I really felt like my ears were going to bleed at some point, because I just at some point was like, I can't do this. But I had this goal. I knew I wanted it to be released in June latest, to kind of close that chapter. So yeah, it was a lot of work. I'd do it again, but it was still a lot of work.
Yeah, I'm sure it was, with 15 tracks. I mean, did you leave anything off it?
Oh, absolutely. There's I wrote so many songs for this album. So there's definitely some tracks that might go on the deluxe, and that people have not heard yet.
Wow. I suppose maybe being in lockdown probably helped your songwriting, did it? You had more time?
It gave me a lot of time. If anything, it gave me time and flexibility. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And you've been out on the road. I think you've been in the US, touring. So
yeah, we were. It wasn't our own tour. It was we were opening for Bastille. They had their tour a month ago, and we were out with them for half of the show.
And how did that go? You know, I'm sure you're enjoying being back out on the road, playing to a live audience again after all this time.
It was amazing. Like that, those were our first shows of like since COVID, like proper shows. So I just remember going on stage being like, I'm confused. Is this like, it kind of feels like it was before, but at the same time, like we just had 2 years where nothing happened and we're all wearing masks and everyone had to keep distance from each other. So I have to admit the first few shows for me were like confusing. I kept changing the order of the set list. I was confused.
Not only were you changing the order of the set list, you were changing outfits, and I read you were getting lots of compliments for your outfits every night.
Yeah, I was. So for the first time in a long time, because I love working with a designer to design outfits for stage. And so I hadn't done that in such a long time. And it felt amazing to kind of get back on stage and have an outfit that was kind of just made for me. So that was nice.
What was going through your head in the first night, your first night on your first live show in a long time? How did you feel?
I felt very nervous because I knew we were kind of the opening act. So I didn't know if anyone would show up. I didn't know if people were going to enjoy the new songs. I didn't know if we should play the new songs. So there was a lot of fear in my body. Yeah.
So which songs from the new album got the best response from the audience?
I'd say Vertigo. It was great to play Vertigo because I had written that a while ago and intended that for live. So Vertigo got a great response. Same team. Mania has been super fun to play live. Those are some of the ones. And the other side, we always play at the end. And I feel like that really wraps up the show because it's kind of like this feeling of like, okay, I made it through a tough time and you come out of the concert feeling good. And I think that's a really fun feeling to give people.
And what was it like being on tour with the Bastille guys? Because they're a great band.
They're amazing. Oh my gosh. I mean, I could go on forever of how lovely they all are. We had such an amazing time. I went with a small crew. It was just me, my guitar player, my drummer, and they treated us with so much respect. They're really lovely people, like the crew, the band, everyone on the team. I would do it all again if they asked me. So.
And you will be doing it again. I think in October, you're doing a UK and European tour. You must be looking forward to that.
I am. I'm very much looking forward to coming back to the UK. And I mean, I moved to London last year, which is exciting because I feel like it's also kind of the next chapter of something. And being back on tour in Europe and playing shows in like Germany and Prague and Switzerland, like it's exciting. So I'm very happy about that.
So how do you relax nowadays when you're not making music or playing shows?
It depends on like how busy the day has been. I like to kind of just sit down and read a book. I like going, like I'm not too far from some parks. So I like to just kind of, yesterday I just went into a park and sat down and watched people for a while and watched the water. I'm really enjoying kind of just going for walks around the area if I have time. I mean, it's been quite a hectic schedule the last few weeks. And
when you're doing that, do you get inspired to write songs when you're just wandering about and relaxing?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I try and force myself to kind of, not force myself, but I like to kind of take a notepad with me or a cell phone and just type away. I feel like when I'm near water, it helps me kind of sort through my thoughts. So yeah, I try and escape to the water. So
far, you've done 2 albums. Put out a great album. You've done loads and lots of touring. So what have been the highlights of your career so far?
Some of the highlights have definitely been, actually this year we played a concert with the Frankfurt Orchestra. And it was like, we basically arranged 12 of my songs for an orchestra. And we played that in front of like 4,000 people. So that was incredible. That is something I never, like we'd been planning that for the past 2 years, but it always got canceled because of COVID. And then this spring, it finally happened. So that was a highlight of my career. Playing on Jimmy Fallon for the very first time was a highlight of my career. Honestly, just playing any kind of festival. Like we haven't yet played a festival in the UK, but I'm like keeping my fingers crossed for next year because I would love to play I don't know, any festival, Isle of Wight, Glastonbury, even if it's like a small stage, it's always been a big dream of mine.
Did you check out Glastonbury this year?
I didn't actually. No, I wasn't here. Unfortunately, we had a show in Germany, so I couldn't see it. But I saw like the videos afterwards of people who performed there, and it looked amazing.
Yeah. I watched it. I only got to see it on TV, so yeah. I watched some performances. It was fantastic.
Who was your favorite performer?
This year I thought Paul McCartney was great. Crowded House. I love Crowded House.
Yeah.
Who else? Noel Gallagher. That's the sort of stuff I like.
Yeah. I saw Paul McCartney a few years ago, and that was incredible. Something I'll never forget.
So, what ambitions do you have going forward?
Ambitions. Honestly, I just want to carry on what we're doing now, and just keep growing and just spreading the music and hoping people will like it and evoking emotions and I don't know, seeing where the music takes us. I really feel like with music, I'm already living my dream that I get to perform and write music as a job. And so I don't like to have like too high expectations. Like I have to make this happen by 2025. It's more like, I really hope I can still do this in the next years to come because I really feel like this is my dream and I've been very lucky with having the opportunity to perform.
Last one. What's next in the immediate future for yourself?
Next immediate future would be festivals. So we're playing Ziggett Festival for the first time this year, Summerwell Festival, Lollapalooza. So that's very exciting. But in the immediate future, there's some exciting stuff coming out that I can't talk about yet. It's right in the near future, though. But I'm very excited to show people what we've been working on.
Good. Well, I'll look forward to that. And hopefully get yourself over to Ireland at some stage to do some shows.
Well, that's this. Yeah, actually, that was quite funny because what's coming out was filmed in Dublin. So there's a very special connection to Ireland. It's an Amazon. I'm not allowed saying it. It's a session that's coming out, and we traveled to Ireland to record it and film it. And it means a lot to me because obviously my family all live in Ireland. And yeah, it was very kind of special doing that.
So that's an exclusive, is it?
Pardon me. Yeah, I can't talk about it quite yet.
Okay. We'll leave it at that. Well, Alice, it's great to talk to you again. It's really last year I spoke to you about Vertigo and everything else. So, it's always good to catch up, and hopefully I'll speak to you again sometime soon with whatever you're doing next.
I hope so too. I will keep you updated with my endeavors.
Absolutely. Look forward to it. Okay. So,
all right. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Always a pleasure. Have a nice evening.
You too. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.